Great, we can get started. I know the Arbitrum account is coming up as well, but I want to be cognizant of your time. Before we get going, do you want to give our audience a quick background to yourself, how you got into crypto, how you got to be working with Arbitrum, all that good stuff, and then we can jump into the wonderful tech.
Sounds great. Yeah, thanks for having me. I just saw the Arbitrum Twitter handle just joined too, so that's great. My name is Bharat. I've been working at Off-Chain Labs for just about 2 years, but been working in crypto since 2017, actually. I joined a DeFi startup back then, back when there were actually like 0 users in crypto, so it was definitely a different vibe back then. Kind of definitely the Wild West in 2017, but had a great time. And since then, I've been in and out of the space, but super pumped to be part of the Off-Chain Labs team. For the last couple of years. Off-Chain Labs is the team that built Arbitrum technology and now grows the ecosystem. What Arbitrum is Arbitrum is a layer 2 solution. It is the largest layer 2 solution on the market today. Arbitrum has around $10 billion of TVL, total value locked on chain. I think this week we processed more transactions and DEX volume than Ethereum did, so really awesome milestone for Arbitrum. Shows that the roll-up thesis is really happening and we're really scaling Ethereum. Just kind of what Arbitrum does is Arbitrum handles all the execution and posts the results of that to Ethereum, so that's why fees are 95% cheaper on Arbitrum than they are on Ethereum. Arbitrum is a great scaling solution. It's the most mature roll-up stack out there today, and we're having a great time building it.
Yeah, but I'm probably going to go out of order here just because the way that you respond to questions piques more, the way you respond to questions piques more into my brain. But really quick, what was it like being part of a DeFi startup? Because I got into crypto late 2017, September 2017. What was it like being part of a DeFi startup at a time where most people in crypto, forget outside of crypto, in crypto, didn't even know what the term DeFi means?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it was an enlightening experience because you were trying to build something that that had product market fit in the traditional world. So, for example, the startup I was working for was trying to build things like indexes, binary options, things that are popular now, but back then not really. People really weren't going like quote unquote on chain either. So there just wasn't a ton of value or like a ton of interest in this stuff back then. People were just happy just trading spot crypto because it was so volatile back then that it was enough for people's risk tolerance. But it was definitely interesting. I think we were really trying to bring over some traditional products over from TradFi over to crypto, but it was a little bit too early back then, we say. But it was a good time, and that's why I'm super happy that Arbitrum is the home for DeFi today, because I'm still a DeFi nerd. I love seeing all the new innovations come to Arbitrum and deploying there natively. So it's been a fun time.
Right on. And you guys are the biggest L2 by TVL, by daily volume. I mean, there have been days where Solana kind of jumps in front, and there's been days where Avalanche jumps in front. But if you go to DeFi Llama, as much as I do, and look at the metrics, you guys are by and far number one as far as, again, numbers go. So what do you think attributed to the ecosystem's tremendous growth relative to its competitors? And also, like, follow that up with what makes Arbitrum different than other layer 2 scaling solutions.
Yeah, totally. So I think a couple things have helped Arbitrum be such a huge success. I think, back when Arbitrum first launched in 2021, we actually weren't the first roll-up to market. I think Optimism was the first to market, but Optimism had a bit of a different launch strategy where they had a whitelist. They just whitelisted Uniswap, and they kind of it was a permissioned way of letting apps deploy. Whereas Arbitrum's way of deploying was, hey, anyone, if you're interested in deploying on Arbitrum, it's completely permissionless, just go for it. And that kind of just created this grassroots vibe on Arbitrum where anyone could succeed. And we weren't really going to pick favorites from the Off-Chain Labs side. So apps like GMX, apps like Treasure were completely bootstrapped and grassroots, and they ended up being really successful. And I don't know, the whole community on Arbitrum is just a bunch of DeFi fans and folks who really want to get in on stuff on the ground floor and kind of be on the bleeding edge of DeFi. So that was a huge part of the success, the fact that we weren't really picking any favorites from the start, and we let just the strongest innovators and people who found product market fit to win. So that was a big part of it. And I think from the technical side, less than the ecosystem side, is we've always really prioritized security at Off-Chain Labs, and Arbitrum is the only roll-up live with fraud proofs today. So the whole system of the 7-day window and how interactive fraud proofs work. That actually is live on Arbitrum today. It's one of the few roll-ups that actually have this technology live, and it's been live for over 2 years. So we've really prioritized security, and that's why you see so much ETH on the Arbitrum bridge. I think the Arbitrum bridge has almost 1.5 million ETH on the bridge, which is billions of dollars more than all the L2s combined, because a lot of ETH whales just trust Arbitrum's security. So I think security and ecosystem growth is like a huge part of why people choose to deploy on Arbitrum and choose to stick around too.
But a quick Google search would answer this, but would love to hear it from the man himself. Can you explain just very briefly what a fraud proof is and why it's so important for a rollup like Arbitrum?
Yeah, for sure. So how rollups work is that they assume that every transaction that's posted to Arbitrum is valid. But if something is invalid, there's this whole system that happens called fraud proofing, where validators can make contestations over whether an invalid transaction has taken place. And if an invalid transaction has taken place, this is called fraud proof. And these fraud proofs are kind of looked at, and if something is proven that it is invalid, the chain takes care of it, and it doesn't roll back or anything, but it just posts to Ethereum mainnet like the real transaction. So that's why there's that 7-day window between withdrawing from an L2 like Arbitrum to mainnet, because the 7-day window is when people can attest whether things are fraud or not. But other than that, most all transactions on Arbitrum are valid and assumed to be valid until someone contests that anything fraudulent has happened. So that whole system is super important to the security of Arbitrum, and Arbitrum is the only L2 with that system actually live today. So fraud proofs are live on Arbitrum.
Beautiful. And audience members, before we continue, if you could give Bharat, the Arbitrum account, and everyone up here a quick follow, and please retweet the space. It helps people get aware of it, and we have Arbitrum on, so this is a great time. We're not going to talk about price action today. We're not going to talk about token, but if you check CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap at least a quarter of the number of times that I do per day, you know that this is a very bullish ecosystem, and it's here to stay. So if you want to ask any questions, shoot me a DM or even comment in the on the space link, and I'll try to get to all of them. So, but going into, actually, let me take a step back. What do you think some of the most significant changes and developments in Arbitrum were for 2023? What did you guys what do you guys look back at and are super proud of? And then I want to kind of dive into your plans for 2024, or what some problems are, and talk about the sequencer as well, since that kind of ties into our previous discussion.
Yeah, sounds great. So I don't know, we've been very tech focused, and we've just been really heads down on making sure the user experience is as good as possible. So Arbitrum fees have always been extremely competitive. They've always been around 10 cents or sub 10 cents, and for DeFi whales, it's a huge breath of relief from coming from mainnet, where things are sometimes $5 or $10. So we've really been focused and on the cutting edge of trying to optimize where fees can be lower, and just trying to create a really good user experience. I think in 2023 we launched a couple of research papers. One being Bold, which is about permissionless validation, which decentralizes the Arbitrum stack even further. I think obviously in 2023, as you guys may know, Arbitrum actually officially decentralized, or went on the path of decentralization by launching a governance token, the DAO, and the foundation, which actually manages protocol updates, which is an incredible piece of work and a feat for decentralization. The fact that if you actually want to upgrade the Arbitrum protocol, a DAO has to vote on it. It's not managed by Off-Chain Labs at all anymore. So that whole idea of decentralization is very core to the Ethereum ethos, and Arbitrum is really leading the way for decentralized governance. So there's been a ton of great catalysts for ecosystem growth in Arbitrum, and that's just a few of them.
Yeah, and I'll get to Fiji in a sec. We can rotate in a couple questions here and there. The Metis Layer 2 ecosystem recently, I don't know if they executed on this, but I know they announced decentralizing their sequencer. Are there plans to decentralize Arbitrum sequencer similar to what Metis did?
Yeah. So I saw Metis did that. I think it's still in the works. I think decentralizing the sequencer is this like gargantuan research problem. But for off-chain labs, we believe that decentralizing the validator set and making sure validation is permissionless is actually much more important and like prioritized than the decentralizing the sequencer. Just because validators can actually be nefarious and do stuff with user funds, whereas the sequencer just sequences transactions and can't actually do anything with the user funds. Like if anything goes wrong on Arbitrum, the user can just withdraw manually to Ethereum mainnet, and that's why the security is so good, because despite whatever happens with Arbitrum, you can just withdraw back into Ethereum, which is like the neutral base layer. So we think Bold, which is what I just talked about permissionless validation, is going to be like a huge innovation and like on the road to decentralization. And sequencing is definitely next up. We actually have a partnership with Espresso Systems with shared sequencing, and we think that that's going to be like really, really big for the space. So I would encourage people to look up like shared sequencing and what we're doing with Espresso as well.
Beautiful. Fiji, did you want to get a question in before I move on to the next part of the broadcast?
It wasn't directly connected to the direction you were going at, but if you don't mind me asking a random question, I'd love to.
Yeah, go for it.
How are you guys supporting building in your ecosystem? What does your grant program look like? From what institutions, and what are you focusing on in terms of dev on the platform?
Yeah, sure. So, as you may know, like Arbitrum was completely bootstrapped in like a grassroots ecosystem for about 2 years before it decentralized and a token emerged out of it. So, we've always really encouraged developers to like find product market fit and like find users. And I think now the fact that the DAO has these grant programs and the foundation has these programs is really great for builders who have been building in the ecosystem and are Arbitrum aligned. So there are a few grants programs that exist on the foundation side, and I know the DAO is constantly, thinking of new ways to fund builders as well. But these programs certainly exist if you're a developer and if you need some help, marketing and stuff like that. I would encourage you to go to the foundation or the DAO to look at what programs they have going. But we've always really found that builders will find product market fit if they like really dive into the Arbitrum ecosystem and figure out what works and what people want. And the grants can supercharge that, but it all comes down to execution ultimately.
Right on. So one of the biggest pain points, in my opinion, for mass adoption is a lack of user-friendly front-end UI. And one thing that excited me about Base was that I anticipate Base somehow having that front-end UI that you see on the Coinbase app trickle over to their layer one. And I wanted to know if Arbitrum has any plans of making a more user-friendly front-end UI or tools that allow for users to interface more seamlessly with a lot of the DeFi protocols that we all love and enjoy interacting with every day.
Yeah, so there are like a couple ways of onboarding onto Arbitrum today. One is through centralized exchanges. So if you want to, buy ETH or USDC directly on Arbitrum, you can just do that on Coinbase today, or Binance or Kraken or any of these other large exchanges. So this all exists today. We also have a native bridge page where if you have ETH in your wallet, you can just, deposit directly onto the Arbitrum network on the native bridge on Arbitrum. So those are just a few ways. I think like apps are starting to like bring on like fiat on-ramping directly onto their DeFi interfaces as well. So the UI is getting much better. I think like people ultimately want to use the apps and the ecosystems that have like the deepest liquidity. And I think if you look at the liquidity on Arbitrum versus Base, it's probably a factor of like 25 to 50x, at least TVL wise. I think Arbitrum has like 40x of TVL Base right now. So there's like really strong liquidity, and people will go where liquidity is, in my opinion.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on, and I think it's going to be hard for a lot of these layer twos to catch up. Again, in my opinion, I think first mover advantage, especially if it's done right, is huge in blockchain and crypto. I think whoever figures out the UI pain point, which we currently have, is gonna help onboard the next big wave of users. So, what are let's see, what are some exciting developments and features and news that you can share with us coming up in 2024 as it pertains to Arbitrum? I know we already talked about some, but what gets your blood boiling about it?
Yeah, there's a few things. I think our engineering team is like, I mean, I'm biased, but I think it's the strongest in crypto today. I think we just have like a couple really, really strong dev teams that are really on the bleeding edge of like L2 scaling and app chains and things like that. So one thing Arbitrum launched a couple months ago was Arbitrum Orbit, which is our app chain stack where you can deploy L3s that settle to Arbitrum or L2s that use the Arbitrum code base. This is huge for, I think, in my opinion, gaming and social layer apps, which want a custom gas fee token, want a gasless experience, and kind of on the whole idea of like UI UX. If you're on a social app or a gaming app, you don't want to be paying a transaction fee every time you move in the game or you like someone's comment. So these apps deploying on an L3 can actually make their chains completely gasless and just make like paying for stuff with crypto like kind of optional. So that's kind of that like Web 2 experience that I'm really excited about. I think we have around 50 teams building on Orbit right now, and a lot of them are on testnet, but excited to see what's going to happen there. And like we'll see if any of these app chains really take off. A couple of the ones I'm excited for are Zai, which is an L3 on Arbitrum. I know Senko and a few other really great ones are building L3s as well. So excited for that whole narrative. I think other than that, yeah, excited for Arbitrum to continue to decentralize. I think like people really don't. Decentralization is kind of like insurance, where like people don't really care until you really need to care. But like we've always been like very proactive about decentralization and like making the Arbitrum protocol like anti-fragile. So excited for Bold to get implemented by the DAO if they choose to do so. And we have this other thing called Time Boost, which actually allows for people to pay a priority fee to like backrun transactions. So front running is bad for users. It actually like sandwich attacks people like MEV on mainnet. But backrunning is a way that users actually don't get penalized. But if you are like a sophisticated actor on Arbitrum, you can actually pay a priority fee to get your transaction in the sequencer faster than like the normal transaction would. Like I said, this does not penalize current users at all. It just enhances the experience for very sophisticated actors in the space, and all that that priority fee will actually go to the DAO if the DAO chooses to implement it. So there's a lot of really exciting stuff coming up for the DAO too, and I would encourage people to get involved in governance if they care to.
Yeah, I actually like. I like a lot of the. We're not going to talk about token utilities, but I like a lot of the early utilities that I'm seeing and plans for the early utilities I'm seeing. Can we take a step back and talk a bit about Orbit chains? Like what exactly is an Orbit chain? When you talk about gasless, kind of a gasless chain, I think of an Avalanche subnet. And so I was curious to know what the differences are between advantages and disadvantages of an Orbit chain versus a subnet. And I also wanted to get into what a layer 3 is exactly as well.
Yeah, sounds great. So, Avalanche subnets are great technology in their own right. I know, the Avalanche team is great. Arbitrum Orbit is different for a couple reasons. One is that, it's built on top of Ethereum, so Arbitrum being a layer 2 rollup, that inherits the security of Ethereum, and if you build an L3, it inherits the security of Arbitrum, so by that, transitive property, you're also inheriting security of Ethereum, whereas a subnet is built on Avalanche's SDK, you're using like the AVAX gas token, it's totally different experience. But in terms of like Arbitrum Orbit, right, so an L3 is this chain that's built on top of Arbitrum that posts, transaction results to Arbitrum as often as it likes. So if you want to make your experience totally gasless on L3, you can just choose to post to Arbitrum like every so often, and you just pay gas on behalf of your users. So that's kind of where that L3 L2 thing comes to. So like for example, if you want to build a social app that has like 1 million transactions a week, and you don't want your users paying like 1 penny per transaction, you can just like abstract gas away from the user completely and just choose to post like a 10-cent batch to Arbitrum 1 instead of like paying like $1 million by deploying that app on mainnet. It's just like a huge innovation to like build these like high transaction throughout apps on like an L3 versus like even an L2, where each transaction costs like 10 cents. And yeah, like if you run an L3, you can choose your own validator set. You can use your own custom gas fee token to make transactions happen. It's like really, really cool. I think there are a lot of app chains right now that probably like don't need to exist, in my opinion, because like a lot of DeFi applications inherit the liquidity of Arbitrum One, and that's like really good for them. But if you're like onboarding hundreds of thousands of users on day one, like a social app or a game, and you don't want to share resources with another app on the same chain, then like an Orbit chain really makes sense, like an L3. But I think for most cases, like L3s and L2s are a little bit niche right now, but I think people are like really excited about them. We are excited about them as well, but I think like it doesn't really fit all apps today, in my opinion. I think like the public chains are pretty much right for most people at this point.
And so, I mean, it sounds to me like an L2 is a perfect use case for a Visa or MasterCard or high transaction type Web 2 application that we are familiar with today. What are the requirements for launching an Orbit chain? How easy is it, or how hard is it?
Yeah, so launching an L3 is completely permissionless. Like you can literally log on to the Orbit website and launch an L3, like your own L3 if you wanted to. If you guys wanted to launch a Moby Media L3, you can do it today permissionlessly. It's totally fine. But an L2 is a little bit different because an L2 settles to Ethereum mainnet, and you would just be using the Arbitrum code base. And an L2 actually requires a special license that the Arbitrum DAO would give you, or Off-Chain Labs actually has the ability to give it to people as well.
Excuse me?
What's up?
What is that?
Which part?
The licensing thing you're talking about.
Yeah. So if you want to build an L2 using Arbitrum technology, it requires a license because your transactions aren't settling to Arbitrum, they're settling to Ethereum mainnet. So like that license would, like, I think the DAO has a commercial agreement to give out the license, whether it's like some share of like sequencer revenue or something like that. But an L2 is a little bit different than building an L3.
And is that functionally inherent, or is that something that you guys have created as a business model? Aren't you public? Aren't you open source? Can I just fork you if I wanted to? So what is this license you're discussing? I'm interested, actually.
Yeah, so it's a BSL license. So like you just couldn't fork it. Like it's like a commercial license. So that's why that license exists, because it's not like a totally open source tech on the L2 side. But if you want to sell to Arbitrum as an L3, you can.
Interesting. No, did you know that?
No, I did not. I'm learning a lot today, honestly. I wasn't too familiar with Orbit chains, and I didn't really know how layer 3s worked. So this is why we bring on these projects, because a lot of us are working with. I mean, full disclosure, half of my crypto net worth portfolio is on Arbitrum. So I know Acti here is very active on Arbitrum. A lot of us are very active on these chains and these ecosystems, and we don't really take the time, because everyone's so focused on number go up, we don't really take the time to peel back the layers and actually learn about what's being built on the background. So yeah, Orbit chains are, I've heard of them before, but I didn't know exactly how they worked. But they can be, an Orbit chain can be an L2 or an L3, correct?
That's exactly right.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So, the upcoming Ethereum upgrade, the EIP 4844, is going to introduce proto-dank sharding. I love the name. And it's expected to reduce roll-up transaction costs and improve network capacity. So, would love to know, because you guys already have such cheap transactions, and I got into this with the Solana Maxes before. Solana Maxes are like, our transactions are 1/10 of those of Arbitrum's, and I'm like, just wait for EIP 4844. So how does Arbitrum plan to leverage these changes for further optimization and efficiency in its operations?
What is that EIP, if you don't mind me asking?
So it's expected to reduce roll-up transaction costs and improve network capacity. So right now,
how?
How? That's a great question. It's probably a good question for an Ethereum dev, or for Bharat.
Yeah, so EIP 4844 introduces this concept of like blobs. So instead of like Ethereum having to like store all the raw call data, it actually just like prunes them into these things called blobs. So like these transactions actually end up getting much cheaper to like post to Ethereum as well. Like L1 fees will go down. And yeah, like I would look into it. It's just like been worked on for about 2 years now. To answer your previous question about how it's going to affect Arbitrum, and like I guess to respond to the Solana guy, I think like 444 is going to be massive for fee reduction, but like I think people are overestimating its ability to like bring down transactions to like Solana level. Like that's not going to happen. Just like being transparent, it's just not going to happen. Solana fees are like going to be way cheaper than Arbitrum for like at least the next year. But like that's okay, right? I think like being a part of this Ethereum ecosystem, it's totally fine because people care more about liquidity in the ecosystem than they care about fees at a certain point. At least in my opinion, fees are like diminishing returns at a certain point where you're paying to be on a chain with $10 billion of TVL. You're not going to mind paying like 5 cents for a swap versus like being on a chain with $1 million of TVL that may have like sub 1 cent fees. It's a less good experience for you as a DeFi user. So I think fees, like bringing down fees is really important, but I do believe that there's like diminishing returns to it. I think like we expect fees to go down like maybe like 50%, but I would say like anyone who's saying they're going to go down by like 99.9%, they're going to compete with Solana fees this year. They're just like getting really excited over something. But I would just like kind of like, put that out there. We're super pumped for 4844. It's going to be a much better user experience, but we'll just like kind of keep some hype in check there.
Acti. So Acti is actually the one that got me more interested in Arbitrum. I was somewhat of an AVAX maxi, not an AVAX maxi. As far as L1s and L2s concerned, I guess I was an AVAX maxi, and GMX was popping off, and Acti was like, hey man, GMX and Trader Joe just migrated to Arbitrum. And I started looking at the numbers, and I was, again, so impressed by how quickly the TVL had grown in just at that point, it had been a few months. So I would love to know if Acti has any questions for, I know he has plenty of questions for you and the Arbitrum team and what you guys have planned for sustaining this growth.
Well, I got a few. Thank you for the kind words there, Noah. Yeah, it's amazing. I've been using Arbitrum for a long time. Very, very bullish on it, and a lot of opportunities there. But I wanted to ask you, Bharat, sort of piggybacking off of Digital and Noah, because there's a lot of people building L2s, building L3s, trying their hands at different rollups and all this kind of stuff. I'm wondering, what do you see as some of these bigger opportunities, or maybe missed opportunities for people, or rather, let me put it another way. What would you like to see more of built on Arbitrum, whether it's from the users, whether it's from the devs, whether it's from the foundation? What's maybe 1 or 2 things that you think would really drive it even further? Because we're seeing some really exponential growth here, but I'm sure you must have some insight or something that you yourself maybe use or are bullish on, and what would that be?
Yeah, sure. So I think one thing I've really spent a lot of my time doing the last like probably 18 months is building out like consumer applications and like loyalty programs for like large brands. I really think this is like the next huge wave of adoption for crypto, where like Web2 loyalty, as we know it, is pretty dead. Like email lists, coupons and stuff like that just doesn't really work. Like people have like filtered out a lot of the stuff on like email and spam. But I think like Web3 loyalty is like, airdropping like personalized NFTs to folks, like giving them like really, really like personalized things on chain, I think is like a new kind of wave of loyalty where, people who maybe want to be close to your brand, but they can't really afford to be, have a chance to like have more of this like digital connection with your brand. I think like a chain like Arbitrum Nova is like really, really good for something like this, where like Arbitrum Nova has like sub 1 cent transactions. We actually just did this program with Fiat, which is like the Fiat 500 car, not like Fiat like government money, like Fiat 500. They actually rolled out this loyalty program on Arbitrum 2 months ago. They did like 50,000 mints like the first day. They like did a massive sale of these NFTs, which actually serve as like a reservation for their next car to drop. And like this is like real utility. Like if you drive this car, you get points in the app. That like you can redeem for like a car paint job or something like that. Like these large brands, Fortune 500 brands, are really looking at like crypto as like a way to get closer to their digital and like internet native audience. And I'm really excited about it. Like Fiat's just one of the brands we're working with. We have like a ton more to announce this year, which I've been working on. So super excited about that. I think that's really going to bring like millions of people on chain in a way that like they may not even know what's happening. They just think it's like a really cool, like personalized experience.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. And you've mentioned these large brands. Is it like a huge endeavor from the team here, just going out there and finding these brands and kind of teaching them the ways, or maybe finding ways for them to use their already existing products and bringing them on chain? Is there a specific narrative that you're going for there? Is it, I don't know, the real world assets? Are you going for the NFT crowd? I don't know. Is it something in particular you're targeting at first and then rolling it out to basically every major industry, or is it just let's go out there, find the people that are more open towards DeFi, and well, I guess with the ETF and everything, a lot more people will be open to it. But what sort of the strategy is when you're approaching these large brands?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different use cases that you mentioned. I mean, like loyalty programs is one for brands that I think is like pretty universal for like consumer brands. Whereas I think the DeFi stuff is more interesting to like the large financial institutions, like the Franklin Templetons of the world, where they see like Arbitrum doing $1 billion of volume, like pretty regularly. So they were like, okay, like we want to be involved with this. So it's just like different use cases for different folks. But I think like a big reason why like the capital on Arbitrum has been really sticky, and a lot of teams choose to deploy on Arbitrum is just because like our BD team is pretty good. I would say like we are like a ton of crypto natives, so we're all like using the apps. We're all like really in the trenches with a lot of these folks. Like our BD team has like 10 people on it, and for like a chain as big as Arbitrum, it's pretty like a gargantuan effort to do like a ton of outreach, whether it's like a crypto native outreach or like brand outreach. But we all just love crypto, and like we are like just grinding around the clock, like making sure teams are happy on Arbitrum, but also making sure other teams like know about Arbitrum and like understand how much of a better experience it may be than the chain that they're on right now. So like, yeah, we're all just crypto natives, and we love it. We love the game, and we're just like really happy to see people really enjoy Arbitrum and keep their capital on it.
Yeah, I'm quite familiar with how the Arbitrum Foundation is tackling the whole helping developers on chains and entrepreneurs and everything like that. I've seen it. I track the forums. And for all our audience here, just go to arbitrum.foundation or forum.arbitrum.foundation, and you'll see what I mean. There's a lot of documentation there for anybody and everyone that really wants to start building there. And I'm just one more thing from my side. If, say, there are some institutions or some bigger brands or anything like that want to get in touch with you, that want to get some help from the foundation, or maybe some guidance how they can leverage the system to their advantage, how easy it is to get in touch with you, and is there like a selection process? Are you looking for something in particular, or can anybody just sort of send an email and they're off on their way?
Anyone, it's completely permissionless. Like we will respond to anyone's request. Like if you email partnerships@offchainlabs.com, we will respond to your request and help you kind of navigate the Arbitrum waters. I think like the foundation is a separate work stream where foundations are more focused on grants. But if you guys want to learn about the Arbitrum ecosystem and how to build successfully and how to build sustainable applications, I would say like talk to Off Chain Labs, which is like where I work. If you're a large brand, like DM me on Twitter or like email me too, and like I'm happy to help guide you there as well. But like I said before, a big part of the reason Arbitrum is successful is because we have been always very focused on like this like grassroots energy. Like when GMX deployed on Arbitrum, no one knew they were going to be this huge success, right? They were like an old BSC project that deployed on Arbitrum. We're just like, we're going to give these guys white glove service because they're a strong team. And I mean, look at what they've evolved into, right? So we never really know who's going to be the next big thing. So we just treat everyone the same and make sure everyone has a fair chance of success. So I would say reach out to us if you're interested, and we'll help you out.
Right on. Fiji, did you have anything else for Bharat?
I'd love to talk about tokens.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. So we're not talking about tokens today. If there's anything else you wanted to ask him, you go ahead.
No, I'm just fucking with you.
Yeah.
By the way, I can see yourself soil yourself digitally, which is fantastic. I think the most important question, which is a continuation of kind of the earlier conversation, which is why functionally, operationally, support-wise, would I choose Polygon or Arbitrum to build, and why? So for those who are building, how do you compare? I don't need the fluff. I don't need the marketing. Realistically, if you were a developer and you were choosing where to build arguably agnostic products, why would you choose Arbitrum over any other chain, and specifically Polygon?
I would say, like, in terms of user count, TVL liquidity, DEX volume, all that stuff has Arbitrum number one by a pretty massive margin. I would say that's not really like marketing fluff either. That's just like statistics. So I would say, like, if you want access to like the deepest liquidity and the most users, most active user base, then Arbitrum is the place for you to deploy on and have the best chance of success.
And this is my last follow-up. In terms of consumer demographics, how would you kind of categorize or identify what your user base is? What kind of users do you have doing? Is it DeFi people for the most part? Percentages? Is people doing staking? Like, what does your community look like in terms of someone building and wanting to choose? Besides for just pure TVL, because TVL that's not community based is kind of irrelevant for a lot of people building. So, what does a user base tend to look like?
Yeah, the Arbitrum user base is a very, very active DeFi participant. So perps are like Arbitrum's big product market fit, where it's not just TVL. TVL is obviously number one by a long way, but if you look at DEX volume, which is like what most people are optimizing for, volume generally, like Arbitrum is also number one by a massive margin. So, perps traders, people who are trading spot on Uniswap, Camelot DEX, SushiSwap, people are just trading frequently. I think the average transaction size on Arbitrum is like over $1,000. So people are like slinging around like large sums of money. I would say, like, if you are a DeFi application, there is pretty much no other chain to deploy on other than Arbitrum that would like give you the best chance of succeeding. But we have other verticals as well, amongst like gaming, NFT stuff, art, and like social as well. But I would say today most of the users are DeFi.
So would you say like 90-10? It sounds like 90% DeFi. And any examples of products or noteworthy projects in the other silos besides for DeFi?
I mean, 90-10, I actually don't really know the answer to that. I don't know, but I think just generally in crypto, all there really is to do is DeFi, consistently. I think gaming is really growing, which I'm excited about, but that's mostly like with Arbitrum Nova. We have two massive games building on Nova right now. Pirate Nation is like A16Z backed game. They raised $30 million from the founders of Farmville. They built their game on Nova and done like millions of transactions. Revolving Games, also massively funded company building on Nova. AI Arena just got funded again. They're building on Arbitrum One. Like really, really legit game studios are building on Arbitrum tech. And I would say like the other verticals, I would say like that's it for gaming. Off the top of my head, there's obviously Treasure DAO, which has like massive gaming ecosystem as well. On the art side, Prohibition actually brought like art blocks over from mainnet to Ethereum to Arbitrum. So it's art blocks' first implementation on layer 2. So if you want to get involved as like an art collector, generative art collector in the art blocks world, but you feel a little bit priced out on mainnet, there's incredible art blocks collections on Arbitrum for like sub 0.1 ETH. So I really encourage you to check out prohibition.art. They're great. And there's just like a ton of other stuff, like I said, the Fiat Pass stuff with the Fiat 500, like tons of ways to get involved with Arbitrum if you aren't just interested in like trading perps.
So my last question is, besides for Noah, what KOLs do you guys have in terms of reps for the chain, for the ecosystem?
Great question. There are a good amount of KOLs that rep Arbitrum for fun. I mean, it's nothing like no official arrangement we have with these KOLs, but like I know like Sobi, who runs Games, is a great KOL. I know Arbitrum News DAO is a great KOL as well. I mean, people just love Arbitrum. Like I said, there's nothing official here, but like it's just cool for us to have people who are like carrying our flag and letting people know. And I think like recently people have really been noticing Arbitrum. We haven't done anything different internally. We just kind of keep pounding and keep making sure apps are happy on Arbitrum, and finally people will notice. So we're happy to see the growth.
Yeah, I've been shilling Arbitrum all year, and I'm not ashamed of it, honestly. Proof is in the pudding. The numbers don't lie. And one of the things that I wanted to ask about, which you touched on, was gaming. Oftentimes, and it seems not to be Arbitrum's approach, but oftentimes, crypto trades and booms. The different ecosystems trade and boom on narratives. One would argue that a lot of what you see is just trading on narratives, and those narratives are oftentimes pushed on crypto Twitter or on Reddit, and we see the avalanche gaming narrative. Well, we see the crypto gaming narrative pushed a lot by a lot of influencers, and we see the avalanche subnet crypto gaming narrative pushed a lot. So now that you've kind of touched on Arbitrum Nova, and you've kind of touched on the use cases of some of these maybe orbit chains for a game, why hasn't, or maybe I'm missing it, but why hasn't Arbitrum tried to use marketing strategies or leverage marketing strategies to better push that gaming narrative? Or is that just not is that not really a concern? It's a concern, hey, the proof is in the pudding, that's how it's always been with us, and it's what we're going to keep doing going forward.
Yeah, I mean, we believe that marketing is really important. So we've certainly done like live streams on the Arbitrum Twitter handle, which has almost 1 million followers. We've done some cool partnerships with games as well. I know, like Avalanche has like a great gaming ecosystem. I know Polygon does as well, and Immutable with Immutable, etc. But honestly, what it comes down to is just like, are people building fun games, right? Like you can like hype people up as much as possible, like pay for a bunch of paid ads, and like tell people the game is really fun, but like I really don't know what a lot of people are playing these days. Like there haven't been that many like fun killer games, right? So like you said, like there is narratives and people like are very emotional on the timeline about like what's the best and what's the worst, and like this game is going to be the next big thing. But like for the most part, most people aren't really playing these games. Like there are very, very few games I would say are like fun and like exciting, and like we really feel like we have a few all-stars on Arbitrum that are creating fun games and like relying less on like influencers to like tell people they're fun, and more just like they're gonna build fun games and people will come, right? So I think like once these games are live and in production, we'll feel great about marketing them, but we just don't want to like, I don't know, I always feel like crypto like hypes people up so far past their potential that like when the game eventually releases, it's like always going to be a disappointment. And like we've just never taken that route with like any of our technology. We always like want to make sure it's built and ready, and then we can like really throw our weight behind it and not feel bad that we're over promising something. So I'm excited about the gaming ecosystem. It's going to come. And we have a really great gaming team. Like I said, we have a few huge wins under our belt. It's just a matter of people like coming in and exploring the ecosystem a little bit. So I'm very hopeful.
Yeah, I second that. There aren't many good games, period, yet alone good crypto games or Web3 games. Most of them are pretty bad, actually.
And by the way, if I can just say about game builders, like it's not their fault. Building a game is so much harder than building like having like an AMM fork, right? Or like just forking another DeFi protocol. It's so much harder. Like there's actually like emotion that goes into it, whereas like with DeFi protocols, it's kind of just like skinning a UI. I know there's more involved there, but like building a game is a much, much bigger task, and it's like a multi-year task too. So like, I'm not kind of disparaging games that are building today, but like I'm saying that like that's why we haven't really like thrown our weight behind the marketing, because we're still kind of waiting for something to emerge here. But if you are a game and you think that you would be a good fit for Arbitrum, we would love to talk to you. Like I said, we're building a huge constituency here. We just like make sure the product is built before we market it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Good games are very difficult to build, and some big studios put their hearts and souls into building a good game, and it just still doesn't pan out. So one of the hardest things, in my opinion, as far as creation goes. So I guess one of my last few questions was, as far as marketing is concerned, I don't notice a lot of it's kind of ironic, right? Because you guys have such huge numbers. I don't notice a lot of official Arbitrum influencers, as you mentioned, on Twitter. I don't really see any advertisements for Arbitrum on subways. And yeah, so for a lot of other chains, and I don't want to use AVAX all the time, but AVAX they're very loud on Twitter, right? You have a lot of different. AVAX seems to have like 100 BD people, but they're very loud on Twitter, and I think that a lot of the recent pomp was attributed to just all the cheerleading on Twitter. But also, I've seen different ads. I've seen Subway ads. I've seen ads online, and wondering if you guys are planning on deploying a similar marketing strategy, or if you are going to try something different and what that might be.
What I can say is, like, we want the product to be the marketing. Like, we want good products to, like, get people excited about the product, right? Like, I mean, I would really, like, and this is no shade to AVAX, I think they build great tech, and, like, I agree with you, like, their BD folks are, like, they're dogs, you know, like, they're really hungry on Twitter, and, like, a ton of respect for those guys. I really don't know if these Subway ads are effective. I would love to see the spend on these things, like, seriously. And, like, whether you're on the New York subway and you see an ad for tech and you're actually pulling up your phone and bridging over, like someone would have to show me the data that this is working, and then I'll be like, yeah, we want to do that. But, like, we have never really just, like, followed people blindly in this stuff. I think, like, people have always talked to me about, like, hey, this other chain is doing this huge incentive campaign. You guys should do this too. I'm like, okay, like, this chain just spent, like, you know, $10 million or like $50 million on an incentive campaign, but, like, none of the users were sticky. They all just, like, farmed the incentives and left. Like, you can't really convince me that that was a good use of money, right? So I don't know. Like, I think a lot of people just spend money and they get users for a little bit and they feel good and they end up leaving for more incentives, right? So I think, like, I would be very curious to see some of these ad campaigns actually work and create, like, long-term sticky user base. What I can tell you is that, like, we've built really good secure products, and if you look at, like, the ETH bridged onto Arbitrum, it just keeps going up, right? People are just like, okay, I think I'm done bridging around to farming incentives. I just want to, like, stay here and, like, enjoy this experience. So we have been leading with the product and making sure the product does the marketing for us, and that strategy has just worked out for us. I think in the short term, people will wonder why we're not shilling ourselves more, but over a 2-year span, like, it is the right strategy.
Again, I think I've said this several times during the course of the broadcast, but the proof is in the pudding. DeFi Llama, L2 Beat, the numbers tell it all. But I think that's all from me. We usually have eager audience members that Acti, go for it. There we go.
I wanted to just jump in for one last thing. I know I said I wouldn't butt in anymore, but you're talking about gaming, and, you know, I'm a passionate gamer myself. So I wanted to get your opinion on something more than it pertains to the Arbitrum ecosystem as well. But who do you think should have a mentality change? Is it the developers of these games that should just move away from the come here and get something incentive type of gaming, the play to earns and whatnot, and maybe focus on different aspects of DeFi, like ownership perhaps, or something different? Or maybe should the user of these DeFi games and Web3 games should change their mentality, whereas to not come in expecting something in return?
It's a good question. I don't know the answer to it. Like, I think, like, and you said you're a gamer, so, like, maybe you understand, like, gamer behavior better than I do, but, like, you just want to go where it's fun, you know? Like, it's like the equation is pretty simple for the most part. But, like, if the protocol layer is, like, a good user experience, then games will want to deploy there, right? So, like, Hytopia, for example, just announced they're deploying on Arbitrum today. Like, we've been working on that one for a year and a half. Like, David on our team's been talking to them for a year and a half, and finally they're like, okay, we're going to deploy our open world game on Arbitrum now. So, like, these things take time, and but when they eventually deploy, they just stick around because the experience is so good. So I would look into, like, Hytopia if you already haven't, but they just announced today, and that was, like, a huge win for us on the gaming side. They just, like, announced their beta soon, and they're going to be on Arbitrum Nova, which is our chain that we built for gaming. So I don't know. As long as the games are fun, people will stick around. I think if you're, like, trying to immediately take advantage of your users through, like, P2E dynamics and, like, just trying to, like, drain them for their wallet, they're not going to stick around because the game isn't fun. But if the game's fun, people will stick around. So that's what I really think games should focus on, and they'll be fine.
Thank you for that. And yeah, I kind of agree with your sentiment. You know, I would love to see a game, a day when these AAA games or even the indie games or something, they come out and there's not a video the next day on YouTube where the game is solved. So maybe they need, maybe it's all on the developers to create fun games and good engagement games, and then the people will flock to them regardless if it's on Web3 or not. But yeah, we really appreciate your answers. Thank you for that.
And like, sorry, one last thing I'll say about that is like, you didn't start playing Call of Duty because an influencer was telling you it was fun, right? All your friends were playing it, and you wanted to play it. So like, word of mouth marketing is still the most powerful thing like in the world in terms of marketing. So that stuff needs to happen. I think like you guys mentioned like other chains which have like strategies of like partnering with Twitch streamers. I just don't think that stuff really works, you know? Like, if an influencer is telling you something is fun, you obviously know that they're being paid to say that. So, like, the incentives are just, like, not really aligned, where, like, maybe the user plays it for a little bit and they're like, this game is, like, not super fun, but my influencer told me it was. Like, people will figure out what's fun for themselves and they'll flock to it. So, I don't know. Like, maybe I'm wrong about this, but, like, so far I don't think I have been.
Yeah. So we got let's see, we got Nifty or NFY, I guess that's pronouncing it, and then recognize and man, I can't fucking talk. Excuse me, can't talk today.
Hello.
Go for it.
Hello, everyone. Hi, guys. Well, today America Bitcoin ETF.
Yep.
I think you might have rocked. NFY, go for it, man.
Perfect, bro. Thank you so much. Bharat, I just have a few questions for you. First would be, by the way, first of all, just wanted to appreciate Noah and Acti and Digital, of course, for bringing Arbitrum, because I think I was just looking at the Arbitrum website, and since 30 or 40 minutes since the space started, I'm just, going on, and there's so much information and so much valuable information. Like, for example, I was looking at Clipper, that's such an awesome DEX, and like you were sharing, there are so many different opportunities there. And I really love the part where Bharat, you mentioned that we don't want to, market through Twitch streamers, because I feel a lot of stuff here, we don't want to market to people that won't be interested in using all of this stuff, right? And I feel as this ETF has been approved, a lot of, mainstream people would come into, watching how L3s operate, and really appreciate Noah for, bringing you up to explain how these L3s operate. And my question to you would be, what are you most bullish on? Like on Arbitrum, what are you most bullish on? Are you bullish on DeFi? Are you bullish on, the on-ramps and bridges? Or are you more bullish on gaming and NFTs? Because I think NFTs are also, some of the really interesting things that I love.
Yeah, I mean, I would think the thing I'm most bullish on is just DeFi continuing to just like go up into the right. I don't know, like DeFi really is like crypto's main product fit right now. I think these other things like gaming and loyalty programs are all like at the really early stages, and like they're fun to get excited about because like the ceiling is not there, right? You're like, this is going to be like everyone's going to be doing this, but right now what's working is DeFi, and DeFi is really working, and people love DeFi. People love trading, and I think people will only continue to be trading more and more using crypto. So I'm continuously bullish DeFi. That's what the market is saying. It's not like no one's trying to sell you anything that this is going to be a huge market in 10 years. It's already a massive market. So I'm bullish DeFi. Excited for the other stuff. Like I mentioned, loyalty programs with brands is something I'm excited about personally. I think there is a business case there, but honestly, the easy answer for me is DeFi.
Appreciate the answer. And would you like to share any resources? No, I would love for you to share any resources on how we can get started on these DeFi platforms.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if you go to portal.arbitrum.one, it's really, really good. We just redesigned it, and you'll get a chance to see like what protocols you'd like to dive into. I'm not sure if you just want to like try out some DeFi apps, but I would say just look in, like, there's so many apps that you can look into. You can also go on DeFi Llama and see like the most used apps on Arbitrum if that's more helpful for you. So it's not just totally random, but there's a couple ways you can get involved. So go to DeFi Llama, go to Arbitrum, and see what apps other people are using.
Cool. Thank you, Bharat. And that brings us to the top of the hour. If you would like to, first of all, really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on here and updating us on all the exciting developments that have happened. I think we got Arbitrum on sometime over the summer. So it's always great to have an update on what's being built. Big fans here. And again, I'm not just saying that. We have a lot of TVL personally between several of us up on stage on Arbitrum. So it really is just like I love ETH and I love everything that's on ETH, and everything that I love on ETH is also on Arbitrum. It's really as simple as that. To dumb it all down, that's really what it is, and that's why I'm so bullish on the ecosystem. But if you have any concluding thoughts for the audience, go ahead and share them now.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, appreciate you for having me on. What you just said is like our goal, right? Like we don't really want the user to like care about fraud proof. I mean, like all this stuff is great because like you just shouldn't have to worry about it. You just want to know that your base layer is as secure as possible. Let us, the infrastructure people, debate each other and like care about this stuff. Like when I'm talking about fraud proofs and like permissionless validation, I know it's overwhelming to a lot of users, but like they don't really need to care. They just need to know that like I'm using the best in class tech, and that is Arbitrum today. Like we have all this stuff figured out and taken care of, and it's like at least on the roadmap to figure out decentralization a little bit more. But like users should just be focused on, am I having a good experience right now on this app? Right, the app layer is what they should care about. But like when you're using the internet right now, you don't care that you're using like AWS or like TCP/IP, right? Like no one, like those people maybe care, but like if you're Google Cloud, you obviously want people to use Google Cloud, not AWS. But like for the most part, you're using a website and you're like, oh, the internet is working and it's cool. Like that's the goal here. Glad you guys are Arbitrum fans. Like I obviously love Arbitrum too. So I'm glad to see you guys like represent us and carry the flag a little bit. And if you haven't tried Arbitrum, now's your chance. We're here with open arms. So if you're a builder too, please get in touch with me, and happy to help you grow on Arbitrum as well.
Sincerely appreciate you, Bharat, and thank you, Acti, my co-host, Fiji, NFY, and the Arbitrum account. Thank you guys for coming up. It's great for optics, and looking forward to 2024. I hope everyone has a great year. Remember that everything you hear on our broadcasts are meant for educational purposes only. Nothing is financial advice, so be safe out there, and we'll see you all in the next one soon. Take care.